Hello viewers and welcome to yet another commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today we have none other than Barzul the Hatebound up against the new Astra Militarum Warlord, Broderick Worr. We're going to see John Wesley controlling our Chaos faction in this video, and we're going to be seeing Brian Kupcheck playing as Broderick. There are going to be a few interesting things to keep in mind during this video as we're doing a little bit of a sneak preview at some of our upcoming Planetfall cycle warlords, starting with Broderick Worr. Any army units that retreat from the planet where he is located are destroyed instead of being retreated. So you can retreat units, they just end up being destroyed. But each other Astra Militarum unit that happens to be at a green planet, a strongpoint planet controlled by the Broderick Worr player, gets +1 attack, and importantly, it cannot retreat nor can it be routed. So in some situations that could be a great bit of protection against Archon's Terror or Inquisitorial Fortress or Blackheart Ravager, but at the same time, if your opponent has the initiative token and you'd like to do some retreats until Broderick vacates the planet himself, you're not going to be able to retreat any units. Barzul is quite a bit different. He starts the game as a 0/5 Hail Warlord, and his reaction is that after a unit you control at his planet takes damage, you can move all of that damage onto Barzul. Not just some, but it's all or nothing. It looks as though both of our players have settled on their opening hands, whether or not they decided on mulligans. The initiative token currently happens to be in Barzul's hand, and we see both of our new signature army units already in play. So at planet number 1, we see Barzul's Cleavers. They're 1 command to attack, 5 hit points. They can deal 2 points of damage to themselves in order to be able to attack for +2 attack during their next attack this phase, but of course limit once per phase. We also have the Anxious Infantry Platoon. This is a very powerful unit that happens to be sitting at a red planet at present. It's a 3/3 with 1 command icon for a mere 2 resources, but as soon as a combat round at that planet ends, you may pay 1 resource. If you don't, you retreat that unit. And note that if Broderick happens to be present at that same planet, that unit is destroyed instead of retreating. But if it happens to be at a green planet, it can no longer retreat, and it actually gets an attack value of 4 for a mere 2 resources. So incredibly powerful. For Barzul, for John Wesley, we see a Splintered Path Acolyte also put out to planet number 2, tying command with the Anxious Infantry Platoon, and we also see a Rogue Trader at planet number 4. We've got an Iron Guard Recruits at planet number 3, put out by the Broderick Worr player Brian, and we also see a Rotten Plague Bears played out to planet number 5 by Barzul. We've got the signature attachment, the Commissarial Bolt Pistol, now associated and attached to Broderick Worr. It boosts his base attack value to 3, and as soon as an army unit you control at the same planet as Broderick leaves play, you can use that reaction to deal 1 damage to a target army unit at that planet. So considering just the wealth of potential card effects that sacrifice Imperial Guard units, thinking about, well, I suppose this doesn't actually activate on tokens, but if you're playing a large number of units, if you're in a big battle, if you can keep Broderick fairly protected, that potentially adds up to be a lot of damage dealt out to the enemy. And as we go into our command phase, we can also see a copy of the Iron Guard Recruits happen to have been put out to planet number 4 to nicely trump the Rogue Trader at planet number 4. We've yet to do our opening layout of planets, but it looks as though our players have already decided where they'd like to go. We see Broderick Worr go to planet number 1, which happens to be Karnath. It triggers the battle ability of any other planet in play, and dissimilarly, Barzul has gone to planet number 2, so it's looking as though he might want to get bloodied by that Anxious Infantry Platoon, or otherwise starve his opponent of resources, and then win Farron through slow attrition. But John Wesley is going to accrue a whopping 4 resources, whereas Brian Kupcheck earns 4 cards and 2 resources. So looking at what they've got going into combat, we are going to see combat at planet number 1. It's going to be the Barzul's Cleavers without initiative against the 3-attack Broderick Worr. So Broderick Worr could likely take a fair bit of damage here. We've got 2 Orc Cannons in John's hand and a Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is not going to do anything up against Broderick Worr, but Broderick takes a swing for 3 at the Cleavers. We've got a 2 shield icon card in hand for our Chaos players. We'll have to see if that gets discarded as shields. For our Imperial Guard player here, we've got a copy for combat-relevant events. In any case, we've got the signature event, Summary Execution. You sacrifice a unit at a planet with your Warlord. That planet gains a green strong point icon until the end of the battle, and then it has a cantrip effect where you basically replace it. So you sacrifice a unit that will trigger the Commissarial Bolt Pistol. You draw a card, and that planet becomes green until the end of the phase, which means that all of your other AM units, apart from Broderick, get +1 attack and cannot be retreat or routed. We do see that Tzeentch's Firestorm deployed as shields, and this is going to be an opportunity for Barzul's Cleavers to deal out 2 points of damage to, I suppose, technically the Commissarial Bolt Pistol based on the arrow's location, but Broderick, a 2/6 Warlord, could potentially take a couple points of damage here. But in examining the remaining cards in Broderick's hand, he's got a Preemptive Barrage, which could be incredibly nasty. Barzul's entire gimmick is that you want to get him bloodied maybe after the first round or two, so that he turns to his 3/11 bloodied side, but if you've got 4 attack anxious infantry platoons, Rattling Deadeyes, and any number of other units all attacking during the ranged skirmish round, that could make it relatively trivial to end up killing Barzul. But it looks as though we see yet another combat round come to a close here. That is going to be an attack against the Barzul's Cleavers, and they're now sitting at 4 total points of damage. They can no longer trigger their effect in order to generate, an attack bonus, but they will have a chance to take another 2-value swing at Broderick Worr, so he could potentially have 4 points of damage this early into the game, and if you'll note, there's no Iridial Healing Planet present anywhere. We see a copy of Summary Execution discarded as shields, so that means Broderick is going to be sitting at 3 total points of damage, and now he'll be able to quite conveniently kill off the Barzul's Cleavers if All right, so after a bit of a disconnect, we're now back. We're at the end of a combat round, and Broderick is going to prevent the Barzul's Cleavers from being able to retreat. So as much as it would have been beneficial for the Barzul's Cleavers to leave the planet, bounce back to the HQ of John, they are basically disallowed that opportunity, so either they could have retreated and been immediately destroyed, or otherwise Broderick would have just simply had the opportunity to just shoot them as he did and destroy it. But that's going to be Carnath captured by Broderick Worr. Looks as though he decided to target Farron with his he targeted Barlas, and that's going to be a random card discard of Orc Cannon from John's hand. So now we're going to see Farron as our active battle. We see the Splintered Path Acolyte as our Chaos player has initiative, deal out 1 point of damage successfully to the Anxious Infantry platoon, and the platoon itself is going to take a swing to potentially kill off the Splintered Path Acolyte, unless, of course, we see Barzul trigger his reaction to absorb those points of damage. But it actually looks as though we see the Splintered Path Acolyte killed, and now this is just going to be an opportunity for basically Brian to decide, does he want to try to bloody Barzul, or does he want to simply forego winning this planet, and then that would result in one of his units being routed here. So Barzul ends up taking a swing for 0 at the Anxious Infantry platoon, and now he's presented with that choice. Does he want to pay 1 resource just to deal 3 points of damage to Barzul? Looks as though he does not opt to do so, and that is going to be Farron 1 by John, and now he's going to have the opportunity to rout any target non-Warlord unit in play, which is going to be almost assuredly this copy of the Iron Guard recruits here at planet number 3, which is going to be pretty much useless if it returns to a planet alongside the Warlord exhausted. And it looks like, indeed, we do see that copy of Iron Guard recruits banished, and that's going to unlock this Rogue Trader for next turn. So Barzul is going to bounce back to the HQ, and we're about to go see our HQ phase, which is going to mean 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. So for our Chaos player, who's definitely got a dearth of cards relative to Astra Militarum, he's got that Orc Cannon, he's got a Promise of Glory, which is going to be generating 2 Cultist tokens that aren't really useful in putting out any demons, because we haven't seen any demons drawn by Barzul. And then he's also got a Snakebite Thug to potentially put a bit of pressure onto perhaps the first planet. We see a Void Pirate played out by Brian, and even though John certainly got more resources than his opponent, he doesn't necessarily have any cards to play those with, or to pay for. So Void Pirate ends up going to planet number 3 opposite a Rogue Trader, just to run down our remaining planets as we see an Orc Cannon enter Barzul's HQ. We've got Planum as planet number 2, it moves non-Warlord units. Barlas, as seen before, is planet number 3, which is the random card discard planet. Ossus 4 is planet number 4, it's the Steel 1 resource planet, and Atrox Prime is going to be planet number 5. You basically pick a target HQ or adjacent planet, and you deal all enemy units at that planet 1 point of damage. Both players put out a copy of the Snakebite Thug to planet number 1. Note that Brian does possess 1 red material icon, so it's going to be useful for him to try to win Farron. If he wins Farron, he could potentially win on planet number 5 through red icons. If he takes another blue technology icon at Planum, he could once again win the game at Atrox Prime, so it's looking as though things are going to be pretty long here. We could see a strong point victory as early as Ossus number 4, so I would grab a snack or something to drink, because it looks as though we're setting in for the long haul. We do see a copy of Promotion put out to the Void Pirate at planet number 3. That's quite nicely going to allow Brian to trump his opponent's command, and just in assessing the remainder of his hand, he's still got enough resources to put into play Captain Marcus. Should he choose to do so, he could simply opt to sacrifice an AM unit to exhaust a non-Warlord unit. If Broderick is present at that same planet, that'll activate the Commissarial Bolt Pistol, so a nice little 1-2 combo there. Broderick himself could interplay Exhausted to do this Muster the Guard trick, and if a unit ends up being destroyed, a soldier or warrior that is, we could see the Elysian Assault team also touch down. So I'll be very curious to see if Barzul looks as though he ends up going to planet number 3. The initiative token is going to be in our Brian's possession, and that's going to be kind of convenient for him. He's got this Elysian Assault team where even if his opponent could out-shield him, he could potentially have the Elysian Assault team replace his Snakebite Thug and kill his opponent's Snakebite Thug, and then end up winning at that planet and doing that route trick, which is probably going to be targeting these Rotten Plague Bears here. But in regard to the command phase, we're going to see Brian earn 3 cards, 2 resources, relative to John's 0 cards and 2 resources. And that's pretty funny. John calls out, "I need all the resources I can get." So it looks as though the Snakebite Thug, controlled by Brian, combat at planet number 1, takes a swing at Barzul's Snakebite Thug. For some reason, we see that Promise of Glory used as shields, I suppose just so that the Snakebite Thug is going to have an opportunity to retreat, because it deals itself 1 point of damage after its attack. Interestingly, we see the Snakebite Thug at planet number 1 end up being killed. I'm not exactly how that managed to happen, because it should have only well, I guess it attacked, and it had taken 3 points of damage. So in any case, the Snakebite Thug at planet number 1 was killed, and that did result in, I I suppose we saw Muster the Guard used at one point as shields, so perhaps I missed something. I'm not quite frankly sure that the Snakebite Thug at planet number 1 should have left play, but in any case, we see an Elysian Assault Team touchdown. It allows the capture of Farron, and we do see those Rotten Plague Bearers exhausted and routed. So at Barlas, we see... it looks as though we see Barzul retreat, which is a little bit out of order because the initiative is in Broderick Worr, so our players are going a little bit quickly here. We see that Rogue Trader return to play, so it's going to be Broderick's opportunity to attack, and it seems as though he does kill that Rogue Trader, and then we see Barzul retreat from that planet. So with combat all now said and done, we're going to see a random card discard done because of Barlas, but there were no cards in hand held by John. So we just see John with a Void Pirate and a Tzeentch's Firestorm. So things are looking pretty grim for him. That's not exactly what he'd like to see. Looks like there's a very significant card choke going on as played by his opponent. Note that John has 10 resources at present, and Brian is faring much, much better with 8 resources and 7 cards himself. John does put a Void Pirate out to our new planet number 5, which is going to be Eluith, the tutor the top 3 cards of your deck for any one card that you'd like, planets, but to his chagrin, we see John is already passed after a Sanctioned Psyker is immediately played out, trumping his Void Pirate, so that could have been 3 cards for John, but unfortunately Broderick Worr is entirely locking him down, and this is going to just afford Hoop Jones an incredible opportunity to just potentially win command on every single planet if he can predict where exactly Broderick Worr will be going. We see a Rogue Trader interplay at planet number 2, and because we're kind of in for the long haul for this game, like we won't see the battle, well, we won't see the game conclude until the round after the next round here at Ossus 4, presuming Broderick is able to just sweep all of these planets. I'll be very curious to see if John can really do much of anything to contest his opponent here. But we do see Captain Marcus touchdown on planet number 1. That happens to be Planum, so if he does win at that planet, he could conveniently relocate himself to a different planet. I'll be very curious to see where Broderick Worr ends up going. Note that planet number 1 is going to be a green planet. Planet 2 and 3 are also green planets. Looks as though Broderick Worr went to planet number 5 just on the off chance the opposition would be showing up there, and this is going to be 1 card, 1 resource for John. He ended up getting a copy of the Chaos Fanatics, an economy card entirely irrelevant to combat, not terribly useful during the following turn, considering that he's not going to be able to put out much, and Brian ends up getting a grand total of 4 resources, and he now has... he got 6 cards and 2 resources, bringing him to a grand total of 4 resources and 10 cards in hand. We see a copy of the Catachan Outpost, we've got an Inquisitorial Fortress, and all of this is going to make things just outright impossible for Barzul to win. That early game landslide, I think, is really going to hold him back and cripple him for the remainder of the game here. Note that we've got this preemptive barrage if at any point Barzul does get pinned down, but even if John manages to get into play some powerful Chaos unit, we've got the Emperor's Warrant, 2 shield icon card in Broderick Worr's hand, and that's going to afford him the opportunity of exhausting a target enemy unit without an enemy warlord, and then you deal damage equal to that unit's modified attack value to another target unit at that planet. So I think it's somewhat unlikely, perhaps, that we'll see a unit away from the warlord, but who knows, that could just be devastating. But planet number 1 is going to go to Brian, entirely uncontested. Looks as though he used the ability of Planum to move his Elysian Assault Team from planet number 5 to planet number 4. And once again, our players are kind of acting fast and furious here, but we see the Rattling Deadeye take a shot at one of these units, and that ended up... I suppose it must have dealt a point of damage to the Rotten Plague Bearers. We see Tzeentch's Firestorm kill off the Elysian Assault Team, and now that's going to bring us to the end of a combat round here. The Rattling Deadeye quite wisely leaves the planet prior to the Rotten Plague Bearers having the opportunity to blast them, and now we're going to see Aatrox Prime target the HQ of Broderick Worr. So that's going to be 1 point of damage to the Iron Guard recruits. Looks as though a promotion prevents 1 point of damage being dealt out to Captain Marcus, and then we'll see if the Rattling Deadeye itself is destroyed. Let me... At planet number 5, looks as though we do see the Void Pirate outright obliterated from John's presence at planet number 5. So that means Elwith is now clear, and Broderick Worr is going to trigger the battle ability there of Elwith. So we see our HQ phase about to start, and there we go. We finally see that Rattling Deadeye destroyed, and this is going to be 4 additional resources and 2 cards for each of our players. John didn't exactly see what he was hoping for, I'm sure. He's now got a whopping 12 resources and 3 cards, but the Snakebite Thug and 2 copies of Chaos Fanatics I don't think are going to quite afford him the opportunity to pull out of this hole he's finding himself in. Hoop Jones, dissimilarly, has 8 resources, and he still has, well, 7 resources, now 10 cards, as we see a Rattling Deadeye interplay at planet number 2, and this is quite a bit of a long game here, but if Brian can manage to win at Barlas, if he can win at Ossus 4, then that will be the game for him. But we see a Chaos Fanatics trump the Rattling Deadeye at planet number 3, we see a Sanctioned Psyker trump the Rotten Plague Bearers at planet number 4, and we see a Chaos Fanatics go also to planet number 4, so John is now once again winning at Aatrox Prime. In assessing the hand of Brian, he's got 2 of those copies of the Emperor's Warrant, which could be incredibly dangerous. He's still got a preemptive barrage, which is going to be incredibly dangerous. What's going to be very tricky is Barzul at the moment, until he's bloodied, he's not really doing much good in regard to assisting in combat, and if he were to show up at the final round of the game attacking for 0, that's going to be of absolutely no use to John. So I think Barzul is probably going to want to show up at Barlas, not only to protect the Snakebite Thug so he can deal out some damage to the enemy there, but also so that he can end up getting himself bloodied to help block off his opponent's win condition here at Ossus 4. But considering we've got this Inquisitorial Fortress, we've got the Preemptive Barrage, we've got the Emperor's Warrants, which are either 2 shield cards or used for their intended effect, that's going to be just a mountain of stuff for John to try to overcome. But the Inquisitorial Fortress enters play. We see an Iron Guard recruits ultimately settle on being sent to planet number 3, and now let's see what exactly we see in regard to command. I would definitely imagine that Broderick Worr might go to planet number 2 to beat the Chaos Fanatics sitting at planet number 2, set himself up for the final round of the game. Indeed, we do see that being his destination. He's certainly arriving with a retinue of units that'll be exhausted, and we see Barzul show up at planet number 1. So Captain Marcus and the Iron Guard recruits here should be exhausted. Hopefully Brian's going to remember that sooner rather than later, and as our players do command, we're going to see John generate 2 cards, 0 resources, a copy of Shoot 'em Mob and Khorne Berserker, which will be valuable next turn in trying to block off his opponent's victory, and then we're going to see a total of 3 cards and 3 resources for Brian. So that is going to be a Tallarn Raiders, another Preemptive Barrage, and another copy of the Raiders. We see the Snakebite Thug take a swing at our first planet, where the initiative actually lies in the hands of the Astra Militarum player, but that's going to be, I'm sorry, so Barzul stole initiative at planet number 1. Again, the game is moving a little quick. I apologize to you viewers at home. We see Emperor's Warrant discarded as shields, so that's only going to be 1 point of damage dealt to the Anxious Infantry platoon, and it's going to be attacking in return for a whopping 4, and there's going to be absolutely nothing that Barzul can do to prevent that damage. Either he can move it all to himself, which is indeed what we see occur right now, so Barzul is going to be bloodied because of the receipt of that damage, and then that's going to afford the Iron Guard recruits the opportunity to attack for 2 and wound the Snakebite Thug to the point where if it does not retreat, it will basically destroy itself after resolving its attack, but that's probably fine. We do see Barzul bloodied. I'm going to remind our players that that is 2 points of damage. And we see Barzul bounce to the HQ. He's now a 311 unit. So we've got the end of a combat round coming up now that the Rogue Trader and Void Pirates have basically occurred. None of the Astra Militarum units present at planet number 1 are able to retreat or be routed at this point, but we certainly can see the Rogue Trader and Void Pirate run away. The Snakebite Thug is going to have the opportunity to take a swing, and it could kill off the Anxious Infantry platoon. Let's see. We don't have a 3 shield icon card for our AM player, so he'd be able to pick and choose between the platoon or the Iron Guard recruits for which of those he would like to destroy. So let's see what John does. We see that Snakebite Thug exhaust. Looks like he's going for the recruits, a 2 command icon unit, and perhaps he's hoping that he'll be able to basically deploy enough units to that planet that, okay, so very wise move. Before we end up seeing combat resolved, we're going to see the Orc Cannon trigger at that planet. That's going to be 1 point of indirect damage, and quite wisely we see the Anxious Infantry platoon shielded by a 2nd copy of the Emperor's Warrants. That's going to mean that the platoon survives, and we are going to see that battle won by Hoop Jones. We see a random card discard, which happened to be the Khorne Berserkers. That's definitely a bit of a tragedy to see. We see the Chaos Fanatics killed off by something at Ossus 4. And now we're going on to just to have the Rotten Plague Bearers sitting at planet number 3 take a shot of 1 at the Iron Guard recruits. But we see quite likely our last HQ phase of the game. This is going to be 4 resources and 2 cards between both of our players. John certainly has enough resources to play everything he would like. We still need Broderick Worr to return to his HQ, but he does leave behind all of these units. Note that we never saw Captain Marcus or the Iron Guard recruits leave that round. So we see the forward barracks played out by Hoop Jones. That's going to be his signature support. It's an incredibly powerful card that, you know, especially when it comes down to this very last round of the game here, in all likelihood, after a combat round ends, so long as you control a single Astra Militarum unit, you put a Guardsman token into play. So as long as you just keep 1 unit in play, you essentially create an inexhaustible, indefinite number of Guardsman tokens, which is just incredible. We see a pair of shoot-em-mobs sitting here at planet number 1, played out by John, our Barzul player, and he's also got a copy of the signature Barzul's Cleavers, but we also see a 2nd copy of the Inquisitorial Fortress put out into the HQ of Broderick Worr. We see a Sanctioned Psyker, which it's at a green planet, so it's going to be attacking for 1. The Rattling Deadeye is going to be attacking for 2. We could see a Preemptive Barrage, so that could be Captain Marcus for 2. The Iron Guard recruits for 2. The Rattling Deadeye for 2. Broderick Worr for 3. Just an incredibly nasty combination of different effects. We've even got multiple copies of Preemptive Barrage if we see our Astra Militarum player go completely crazy. And we also see a copy of Catachan Outpost. So between these 2 Inquisitorial Fortresses, between the Outpost, between all of these ranged attackers, and note John at the moment going into command has no shield cards whatsoever, we could potentially see the 311 Barzul the Hatebound obliterated during our range skirmish phase. Both players have decided they'd like to go to planet number 1. We're going to see command at planets 1 and 3 won by, well, actually, no, every single planet is going to be won by Brian or Hoop Jones, so that's going to be 4 cards and 5 resources, and let's see if our Astra Militarum player can potentially do 11 points of damage during the range skirmish round. He got another copy of the Anxious Infantry platoon, and let's see how this breaks down. We've got Marcus is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So if we give ranged to all of these units, that's going to be Barzul killed during the ranged skirmish round. But let's see how things break down. Looks like the Rotten Plague Bears at planet number 2 end up killing that copy of Iron Guard recruits. We see both copies of the Inquisitorial Fortress fire off. Barzul's Cleavers and Shoot-a-Mob are basically sent, packing from that planet. We do see the double preemptive barrage, and we're going to see each and every Astra Militarum unit selected. That's going to be 3 from Broderick, that's going to be 6 with Marcus, that's going to be 8 with the Iron Guard recruits, 10 from the Rattling Deadeye, and that's going to be 11 from the Sanctioned Psyker. So all of that is going to be sufficient, and we also see the Catachan Outpost, so that is going to be a whopping 13 points of damage dealt out to Barzul, but let's see how it breaks down. So there's absolutely no opportunity to shield there in Barzul's empty hand, so Barzul takes 5 alone from Broderick Worr, who for some reason does not exhaust. We see Captain Marcus attack for 3, and it looks as though our players are screwing up how much damage they're dealing out. But in any case, it's going to be a more than sufficient number. So the Iron Guard recruits are going to deal an additional 2. The Rattling Deadeye also does 2. And now it's going to be the game right there. So very well played by both of our players. But of course, congratulations to Brian Kupcheck. Congratulations to Hoop Jones for winning this game. Definitely was not the strongest showing for Barzul, but definitely leave a comment below letting me know what your thoughts are of our new upcoming Astra Militarum and Chaos faction warlords. Do you think Barzul is just relatively weak, or do you think that this was a bad game? What could have maybe gone differently just to give Barzul a bit more of a fighting chance? But with that said, I'll just end this video by saying, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, you're always encouraged to share this content, as the more views, the more likes these videos receive, the more likely players are to stumble upon this game, give Conquest a try, like what they experience, and for all I know, end up joining our community and sending the message with us to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, as I'm always on the lookout for additional Octagon or live-action games to commentate, spectate, and record. And, of course, if you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant's cause, I'd be absolutely honored were you to check out and donate to my Patreon. But, once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.